The last class. Sovereignty. Okay, good. Good. We talked about sovereignty. Talked about sovereignty. And what do you know about sovereignty? जोर से थोड़ा. The literal meaning of sovereignty is supreme control. है ना? Literal meaning is supreme control. For example, I say I am sovereign. Right? Yes. I am sovereign means I am independent. Hmm. है ना? I have my own control on myself. No one control me. Right? This is a modern concept. Hmm? Very modern concept. And it is an essential element of any state. बताया था ना? मैंने आपको बताया था ट्रीटी ऑफ वेस्टफेलिया. हाँ, कब हुआ था? 1648. Yeah, Treaty of Westphalia. Now this Treaty of Westphalia established, the idea of sovereignty, and also idea of is the legitimized idea of state, nation state, whether it is big or small. Now let me tell you, this sovereignty Treaty of Westphalia principles still followed by the state. Hmm? Now look at Nepal and Bhutan and India and US, all are equal. Hmm? And no one is allowed to intervene in another's internal matter. All are independent, sovereign. All states are sovereign. Got the idea? ठीक है, पता चल गया. Now let me talk about a few terms like legitimacy. सुना है वर्ड? क्या मतलब होता है legitimacy का? When you say something is legitimate, what does it mean? A marriage after 18 years is legitimate. Hmm? Between two opposite sex, right? Now, what do you mean by this? Legitimate मतलब क्या होगा? Acceptable. Legitimacy means acceptance, right? Right? Or justiciable. Hi, Sweta. Good morning. I hope you are good. Now, if you talk about legitimacy means acceptance or justiciable. Sometimes law legitimizes something. Sometimes society legitimizes. Sometimes, society does not accept something. Then we call social illegitimacy. For example, consider a relationship between man and woman without marriage. Is it not legitimate by society? But consider after marriage. अगर उसी इंसान को marriage कर दो. Now marriage gives legitimacy, social acceptability. नहीं, है ना? For example, if you talk about elected government has legitimacy. Hmm? It is acceptable. But consider tomorrow there will be, military government. People may not accept it. They will face less, crisis. That is called crisis of legitimacy. Got idea? So legitimacy का literal meaning होता है acceptance or justiciable, right? Or authentic, you can say that. Hmm? That is legitimacy, right? If people accept them, then it is legitimate. When people don't accept it, then there is a crisis of legitimacy, right? Have you heard about the word authority? What is authority? Authority is a form of power. What is power? When say power, what is power? Capacity means capacity to produce effect. Effect. Sometimes power equated with controlling, right? To dominate someone, isn't it? Right? For example, if you switch off the light will go, right? It will have immediate effect, right? So power has always capacity to produce effect, right? तुरंत उसका effect दिख जाएगा power का, and that is capacity to produce effect is called power, right? There may be, power has different dimension, like authority has different dimension, like social power, or you can say that traditional power. Traditional power. Like if you look at temples, priced, they used traditional power. Hmm? Then you have charismatic power. Charismatic power or charismatic authority, because authority is equated with power. What is charismatic authority or charismatic power? Someone acquires power through his charisma. Baba Ramdev, Modi ji, look at Modi ji, he has charisma. Hmm? Or Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther Jr., King, they had charisma, right? And then you have legal power. Legal power. What is legal power? The power acquired through the law, like bureaucracy or police. You know, there's a military. They have power, but they have lawful power, legal power. Power has its own dimension. Authority has similar dimension, right? The traditional authority, the charismatic authority, and the legal authority. समझ में आया? तीनों को अलग अलग लिख लीजिए, right? Same. If you see authority, right? Authority has three dimension. अगर अथॉरिटी को देखेंगे तो अथॉरिटी में भी तीन डायमेंशन है अथॉरिटी का. ट्रेडिशनल अथॉरिटी, right? Then you have charismatic authority, and then third you have legal authority, or sometimes it is called legal rational authority. Why it is rational? Because it is acceptable by all. In modern, democracy, modern world, legal rational authority is acceptable to all. है ना? अब किसी मॉन्क को आप नहीं बिठा देंगे राजा बनने के लिए और रूलर बनने के लिए. किसको बिठाएंगे? जो लीगली उस पे ऑक्युपाई करे, जो इलेक्शन जीत जाए, है ना? So power has its three dimensions. Similarly, authority has three dimensions. Charismatic authority means someone acquires authority due to his charisma. Like Gandhi, right? Gandhi acquired, or Modi ji had charisma, right? Modi ji has also the legal rational authority. He is also elected person. But sometimes there is no elected person, but he has lots of authority. That is charismatic authority. Like Baba Ramdev, he is not elected person, but he has authority. He command, on people. People accept him. I know. So that is authority. That is power. Anything that power. power, authority, legitimacy. I told you that. Treaty of Westphalia, sovereignty, or form of government. I have already told you. Then philosophy, theory. Hmm? Now we can begin. Right? The basics I have taught you. Fine. Okay. Now let me talk about the Greek trio. अब आपका क्लास शुरू हुआ है. Greek trio से. Now in Greek trio we need to study three philosophers, right? Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Three philosophers we need to talk about. Right? Now these three philosophers are basically, was in relationship. And the relationship was teacher and student. Socrates was teacher of Plato, Plato was teacher of Aristotle, and all three were great philosophers of Greek city-state. Got the idea? Now, before we study, these all three philosophers, we have to look after the, look into the context in which these philosophers were speaking. Right? What was the context in which these philosophers were talking about? So, let me talk about the ancient Greek city-state. Ancient Greek city-state. Now, ancient Greek city-state, if you look at, there were very tiny, more than 100 city-state in Greek, right? Like Athens, Sparta, Miletus, Coronate, right? And the two state was very important. One was Athens and another was Sparta, right? Two state was very important here to name. One is Athens and another is Sparta. Look at the Athens, right? Athens was a democratic state. Athens was democratic state, right? And it is ruled by elected leaders through direct election. Direct election. Right? Now Athens was allowing everyone to come. Like today, US, right? US allow any citizen, any it doesn't matter from India or from China or from Africa, if they are intelligent. They immediately give green card, this card, that card, right? And that intellectual actually contribute in American development, isn't it? Right? Similarly, if you look at there are many Athens attracted many, knowledgeable person from the outside, right? And they were engaged in teaching, right? These intellectuals were called sophists. Got the idea? Athens, Athens attracted intellectuals from outside And these intellectuals were called known as sophists. You look at the word sophist. Sophist means सोफिया से आया है, knowledge, है ना? Like egoist. Ego मतलब होता है जो जिसको अपने सेल्फ के ऊपर बहुत ये होता है. No, here is sophist. So Athens attracted intellectuals from outside, and there were intellectuals from these intellectuals were known as sophists, right? Sophists were actually kind of half university. They were engaged in teaching history, music, politics, right? And rhetoric. Rhetoric means the art of speaking. Because whenever you have an election, right, you should know how to speak to attract your supporter, right, to get vote, right? So write 1, 2, 3 line about sophist. Sophists were engaged in teaching history, music, mathematics, right? Mathematics, astronomy, right? And rhetoric. Right? What is rhetoric? Art of speaking. Right? There is one word that is used also, eloquence. Meaning is the same. Right? Sophists were engaged in teaching history, music, mathematics, astronomy, rhetoric. Right? Where? Sparta or Athens? Athens. Sparta, mane. Right? I told you Sparta was a democratic state, right? Economically, it was a very much agrarian society. Economically, Athens was agrarian society. Of course, this was an early society. Agriculture was land was a major, holding of power. Land was actually basic institution to hold power. जिसके पास लैंड था वो उसके पास पावर थी, right? But it was not only instrument of power. Knowledge was also instrument of power. Got the idea? Now, if you look at, these were the basic characteristics of Athens. Now, one more thing I would like to talk about sophist. The early sophists did not used to accept money in exchange of teaching. But later on, what sophist does, sophists started taking money in order to, confer knowledge, right? Sophists used to train politicians, especially the young mind, young politician, right? Sophists attracted young politician, right? To teach them rhetoric. आपको पता है ना मोदी जी कितना बोल बोल के लोगों को अट्रैक्ट कर लेते हैं. हाँ, सो पॉलिटिक्स में जब भी डेमोक्रेसी होगी तो इसका इंपॉर्टेंस होगा. And since sophists was very trained in rhetoric, they used to teach how to speak, how to get power. Now, the sophists actually attracted young Athenian, right? Young Athens or Athenian, people, right? And they used to get training under the sophist. but they used to get exchange the money. वो पैसा लेते थे, ठीक है, clear है, right? But early sophists did not used to take money. समझ में आया? इसको भी लिख लें. Early sophists did not receive money in exchange of knowledge. In exchange of knowledge. But later on, they started taking money nahi. Shweta, am I audible? She is unable to write actually. I don't know whether she will कुछ बताएगी तभी तो पता चलेगा whether she is able to hear me, whether देख लीजिए. So Shweta, are you able to reply either in written or the speech form? Later on, they started taking money in exchange of knowledge. Right? They attracted, now next point you write, they attracted sophist, attracted young Athenian, right, citizen. Sophist attracted young Athenians, who used to receive education on rhetoric and how to get power, right? How to get power or how to get elected. Because election was when you get elected, you have power. Now, this led to corruption in the, corruption under the Athenian political system, right? And the most corruption was ethical corruption, moral corruption, right? People used to speak lie. Look at Modi ji, right? वो बोलते हैं इतना ये हो गया, इतना हो गया, इतना हो गया, huh? It attracts people, but knowledgeable people are not happy with the Modi ji government, right? Now, if you look at Socrates, was knowledgeable person. He was not happy with the existing democracy in the Athens, right? Now, okay, this teaching, this method of teaching led to moral and ethical corruption in Athens. In Athens, right? Socrates, a native of Athens, and philosopher, was not happy with happy with sophist. उनको sophist अच्छा नहीं लगता था. Look at this method of teaching led to the moral and ethical corruption in Athens. Socrates, a native of Athens and philosopher, was not happy with sophists. Yeah, Sweta, वो तो कुछ reply ही नहीं कर पा रही है. I am not able to understand whether she is getting or not. I hope she is receiving, but I'm giving up. Yeah. So this is a simple, one more thing we'll talk about later, right? But this is a basic characteristics of Athens. समझ में आया? कोई दिक्कत है तो नहीं है यहाँ पर? Now, come to Sparta. Come to Sparta. Sparta was a democratic state. Was a democracy ruled by military. Ruled by military, right? And man and woman, all man and woman, both were allowed to get education, especially the military skills. Military skills. Right. यहाँ पर women were not allowed. Let me tell you, in Athens, women were not allowed to get education. Women were not allowed to, involve in citizenship. कहाँ पर? Athens में. Only men. Right? And those men who had either property or some civic virtue. Okay? Now look at Sparta. Sparta was a democracy ruled by the military. Right? And man and woman both were allowed to get education, especially the military skills. Sometimes कहते हैं Spartan है. Why Spartan? Spartan was very highly skilled in fighting. Right? Another thing, if you look at Sparta did not allow outsider to come in their territory. They did not allow. Right? Because आप देखेंगे military हमेशा skeptical होते हैं. Security को बड़ा ही concern होता है. Right? So Sparta did not allow outsider to come in Sparta. उन्होंने आने नहीं दिया. Now one more thing I should talk about. Sparta was have good army. Sparta had good army. But Athens had good naval power. Naval power. Sparta had army power. Right? Land. Army who fight on land. ठीक है? तो इनकी जो थल सेना थी वो बहुत पावरफुल थी. थल मतलब जो जमीन पे लड़ता है. The naval power of the Athens was Athens was also actually surrounded by sea. Right? Right? Now, इतना समझ में आया? Agriculture, it was agrarian society. Again, Sparta was agrarian society. There is no difference in economy. Right? These two states were very, very important. समझ में आया? Now, if you look at Athens had alliance with the naval, it's called littoral estate. Have you heard about the word littoral estate? Littoral. Let me tell you. If you look at Athens had alliance with littoral estate. लिटरल स्टेट क्या होता है? द स्टेट विच इज सराउंडेड बाय सी, लाइक श्रीलंका इज अ लिटरल स्टेट, or you can say Maldives is a literal state because it has good navy power, it has good alliance with, right? Now if you look at Sparta, Sparta had alliance with, you know, the landlocked state. Sparta had you know, alliance with landlocked state. Having good army, right? Now both were rising power. Both were rising power. Athens and Sparta, right? And if you look at, you know, Athens was a democratic state, Sparta was a democracy, right? In Athens, you know, men were allowed, but women were not allowed. In Athens, women were not allowed to citizenship. Only few equal men were allowed to get citizenship. Now, what happened? You know, what happened? There was a something consciousness. Consider your neighbor is very powerful. Your neighbor is very powerful, and you are also rising. Now, what will happen when there is a no supreme control all over independent state? Now, there was a suspicion among the Spartan that when Athens is rising and when Athens will rise, it may attack Sparta. राइट right? होता है ना, अभी मान लो कि चाइना राइज कर रहा है तो देखो यूएस क्या कर रहा है ना, होता है ना. सो देयर वाज अ कॉल्ड there was suspicion in among the, you know, Spartan that the Athens may attack Sparta. This was actually this is something which happens. नहीं, मान लो कि आपके बगल में कोई आप ही बंदूक लेके घर पे आ गए या क्लास में आ गए तो मुझे मेरे इनसिक्योरिटी होगा मेरे अंदर, राइट? नाउ दैट इज व्हाट हैपनिंग. What happened? Sparta attacked under this suspicion Athens, and there is a long war between Athens and Sparta, right? It was a 20 years war, 28 years war. Between Athens and Sparta. कहानी है, सुनो, बस कुछ नहीं है, कहानी है, ठीक है? और आप कहानी अच्छा लगता है तो it's all about a story that you should learn, right? And you should write in the story way. Now, later, if you look at Athens lost war, who won victorious? The Sparta. Sparta, or this war is called Peloponnesian War. Because this war was fought on some land that was called Peloponnesia. Let me see the war timing, exact timing. The timing was 431 BCE to 404 BCE. देखो तो टाइम मैंने सही निकाला, 28 ईयर्स हो जाता है, 27, 28 years, right? This war started in 431 BCE and that actually ended in 404 BCE, right? ये पहले है, ये बाद में है ना? तो ये पहले नहीं है, ठीक है, क्योंकि BCE है, right? I hope you are remembered BCE AD, जानते हो ना? नहीं जानते हो तो बताऊंगा मैं. हाँ, जानते हो ना, राइट. नाउ दिस war fought on the Peloponnesian. ठीक है. Now on this war there is a book written by Thucydides, right. This book was written by Thucydides, and Thucydides documented Thucydides. He was a historian, and he had written the history of Peloponnesian War. That is a great text that Thucydides has written. The history of Peloponnesian War. The war was documented by Thucydides. Right, one of the classic work that we have till today. This is one of the classic text that we have today, still today. हमारे पास है किताब, किताब निकलती है, देखो ना 500 रुपए में किताब बिक रही है. ठीक है, समझ में आया. अब थ्यूसिडिडीज कौन था? नाउ लेट मी टेल यू, थ्यूसिडिडीज वाज army personnel in Athens, and he lost war. Sorry, actually he became physically not suitable to fight war, right? So he excluded from the war, and then what he did, he started writing the events, क्या क्या हो रहे हैं, क्या क्या हो रहे हैं, and that resulted in a book that is called History of Peloponnesian War. Got the idea? What happened? Athens lost war, Sparta won. Won the war. Athens lost war. Athens lost war, Sparta won the war. When? 404 BCE. 404 BCE, right? 20 years war between Athens and Sparta, right? The Athens declined economically. Of war needs lots of economic resources, right? The war also needs lots of human resources, right? Now, when Athens lost war, it lost lots of economy, lots of human resources, right? Now, what happened in 202 BCE? Let me tell you, in 202 BCE, there was one event, राइट. ये 202 BCE की इवेंट है. और इवेंट हुआ क्या कि एथेंस की जो सरकार थी, इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट थी, उन्होंने 30 लोगों की एक कमेटी बनाई. कितने लोगों की? 30 लोगों की कमेटी बनाई कि जस्ट look into the how government can be reformed, because it was a afterward, it was a post-war period, and Athens was actually setting up a committee of 30, right? Now this committee of 30, with the help of Sparta, overthrown the democratic government and established its own tyranny. हाँ बोलो. 402, sorry देखो, sorry, thank you. 402 BCE, just 2 साल बाद, right? Sorry, that my mistake, right? Right, after just 2 years, the Athens government has set up a committee of 30, right? And this committee of 30 actually get the help of Sparta, and they, thrown out the elected government of Athens, and they established their own tyranny. That is called the rule of 30 tyrant, right? The rule of 30 tyrant. And this rule, they actually ruled only 8 years. Sorry, 8 months. Oh, sorry. 8 months. Only 8 months. Right? And within 8 months, they killed more than 1,000 people in Athens. They killed more than 1,000 people in Athens. But the democratic faction, क्योंकि इसने जिसको हटाया उसका भी तो पावर था, they were elected government, उनका भी एक ग्रुपिंग था. अब उन्होंने within 8 years democratic factions overthrown the tyrant, 30 tyrant power. Now this entire episode was actually Socrates watching. अब बोलोगे सर सोक्रेटिस कहां से था, कौन था? तो I told you that Socrates was an Athenian citizen. He was also involved in this war. He used to make weapon, yeah. You know, earlier weapon was used, it's one gun to tha nahi, right? Talwar, तीर, जो भी होता था, he used to make weapon, right? Now he also gets some injury, right? And he rejected from the direct fighting. Then he engaged, you know, in making mockery on the government, the satire. You know satire? Satire होता है मॉक करना गवर्नमेंट को. मॉक, MOCK, मॉक मतलब होता है खिल्ली उड़ाना, मजाक उड़ाना, right? Or he did not use only mocked the government, he also mocked several practices within Athens, right? Before we go to the Athens, Socrates, let me talk about 202 event, the rule of, 402. The rule of 30 tyrant. Right? In 402 BCE, the Athens government, the Athenian government set up a committee. Now consisting of 30%. 30 eminent, yeah, they were eminent person. कमिटी में हमेशा होता है, कमिटी में हम किसको बिठाते हैं, हेड करते हैं, जो बहुत ही उस समय बहुत ही इमिनेंट लोग होते हैं, उसी को कमिटी देते हैं ना, हाई पावर्ड कमिटी. हाँ, so it was a high powered committee, right, consisting of 30 persons, right, 30 persons, right, to inquire, no, into government system. Government system, but with the help of help. ये मेरे साथ होता है, मैं राइटिंग करता हूँ, बहुत चीज सोचता रहता हूँ जल्दी. With the help of, you know, Sparta, you know, the 30 people established tyranny, right, in Athens, and through the democratic government. Now let me tell you, Socrates was a very much aristocratic family. He was a, you know, also very eminent person, and he had, you know, connection with government also, and connection with 30 people also. Socrates का, उसके दो चाचा थे इसमें, 30 लोग में. लीडर का तो चाचा भतीजा सब लीडर होता है, आपको पता ही है, right? So he had connection with this government, and he had connection with 30, you know, people. And but he was not happy with the either. He was neither happy with the elected government, because election was actually, you know, held to get power, to acquire power. by on the basis of a rhetoric election was held, right? There was a moral degradation in Athens. The war led to the economic decline in Athens, right? Athens become very much weak state, right? Now this tyrant has actually killed more than 1,000 people in Athens those days. Consider 31,000 people killing. It was not a simple. Within 8 months, this 30 tyrant killed more than 1,000 people. But within 8 months, democratic factions replaced these 30 tyrants and again established democracy, a democratic government. समझ में आ रहा है कहानी? बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग कहानी है ना? The 30 tyrant governed Athens months and killed more than 1,000 people, right? And more than 1,000 people exiled, भाग गए, and more than 1,000 people, exiled, right? Within 8 months, the tyrant, or the democratic faction tyrant, governed Athens for 8 months and killed more than 1,000 people and more than 100 people exiled. Within 8 months, the democratic factions replaced tyrant and re-established democratic government. Within 8 months, ये गेम हो गया. Within 8 months, Shweta, have you noted down? See, the 30 tyrant governed Athens for 8 months and killed more than 1,000 people and more than 1,000 people exiled. भाग गए. होता ना, मारता है तो दूसरा भाग जाता है. तो 1,000 लोगों को मारा, 1,000 से लोगों से ज्यादा भाग गए. क्या करेंगे जान बचाने के लिए? दो भाग गए, right? Now within 8 months, the democratic factions, replaced the tyrant and re-established democratic government, right? Now this is the context. Now I'll begin Socrates now, right? This was the context. Now I'll teach you Socrates and you'll get Socrates very clear, है ना? किसी के बारे में जानना हो तो उसकी कॉन्टेक्स्ट को जानना पड़ेगा, है ना? उसके बिना आप नहीं उनको जान सकते थे. Now, if you look at Socrates, who was a courageous person? Socrates was witnessing, or Socrates witnessed these events, and he had connection from both groups, but he did not join either. He did not join either of the group. वो ग्रुप क्या था? डेमोक्रेटिक फैक्शन और टैरेंट, right? Socrates witnessed these events, and he had connection from both the groups, but he did not join either of the group. ये ग्रुप कौन सा ग्रुप था? द डेमोक्रेटिक फैक्शंस एंड द टेरेंट, उनका एक ग्रुप था. टेरेंट को हटा करके डेमोक्रेटिक गवर्नमेंट आया. नाउ another thing I would like to talk about, Socrates was very courageous, very courageous. He used to speak fearlessly. He was fearless. He was a, used to impose very hard question. बहुत लोग अनकंफर्टेबल हो जाते थे उनके सवाल से, राइट. मिनट, कैमरा हैज ऑफ. Yeah, I hope I'm visible now, Sweta. Socrates witnessed these events and he had connection from both the groups and he did not join either of the groups, right? Now he was a courageous person. You know, used to ask difficult question. From all citizens, right, including people in power. बड़ा इतना डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन पूछते थे कि एक बार ये हुआ इंसिडेंट कि सोक्रेटिस का घर ही जला दिया, राइट. ही यूज्ड टू रेज क्वेश्चन ऑन रिलीजन. ये गॉड क्या है तुम जो मानते हो प्लूटस को? प्लूटस वाज अ गॉड दैट टाइम, राइट, सिटी गॉड, right? And apart from Plutus, there was many god, right? Now he used to ask raging question, why you are believing this as a god, right? And this made him many enemy and many follower, right? When you see होता है ना, when you raise questions, आप क्वेश्चन पूछते हो तो बहुत लोग बोलते हैं नहीं सही क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा है, राइट. बट जो जिनको वो क्वेश्चन खटकता है वो बोलता है अरे तुम मैं तुमको सिखाऊंगा, होता है ना, right? Now he used to ask many questions, the very difficult questions from all citizens, including people in power, right? He had many enemy. He earned many enemy, right? But many supporter too. Many supporters too. Many supporters too. He was the person, he was the philosopher. He was the philosopher who, who really started talking about virtue, right? Virtue, state, citizenship, or good life, right? Good society, right? Knowledge for good. This was a person. And this is why Socrates is called as a father of ethics or father of philosophy. This is why Socrates is known as father of ethics. and politics, philosophy, ethics and philosophy. अगर कोई फादर है इथिक्स का और फिलॉसफी का तो वो है सोक्रेटिस. सोक्रेटिस इज अ फादर ऑफ एथिक्स एंड फादर ऑफ फिलॉसफी. अब सवाल उठता है कि सर ये तो 402 बीसीई की बात कर रहे हैं आप, 404, 405, 410, 420 बीसीई की बात कर रहे हैं. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट no 404 BCE. Now by that time, if you look at in India, already Buddhism had, Jainism had already arrived and they had flourished. Now, and India had good set of philosophy those time. Now, why Socrates is called father of ethics and father of philosophy? Right? The first question. Second, why Socrates is called as father of philosophy, father of ethics? No, was no knowledge available in Athens before Socrates? This is the second question. नहीं है ना कि why Socrates? क्या सोक्रेटिस से पहले नॉलेज सिस्टम नहीं था एथेंस में? नहीं था. Before Socrates, there were many philosophers in Athens, but they focused on natural philosophy. Natural philosophy means, the wisdom related to the solar eclipse, the, earth, what is earth made up of, the pattern of a star, right? The mathematics. Look at Pythagoras. Have you heard about Pythagoras? Pythagoras was here, right? Have you heard about Euclid? Euclid was here. Pythagoras was here, right? So if you look at before Socrates, there was a natural philosophy. And the first philosopher is considered as a Thales. अगर आप देखोगे, right? Knowledge before Socrates and Athens. Knowledge of Greek, before Socrates. कौन सा नॉलेज था यहां पर? Right? The before Socrates, philosopher actually focused on natural philosophy. Right? Before Socrates, yeah, there were many philosophers. There were many philosophers like Thales. सुना है कभी नाम? राइट? ये था 100,000 BCE में. राइट? नाम सुना है थेलीस का? अच्छा. थेलीस, एनाक्सिमेंडर, right? Anaximenes, right? And others. Before Socrates, there were many philosophers like Thales, Thales, huh? Anaximander, Anaximander, Anaximenes, Anaximenes, and others who focused on natural philosophy, who focused on natural philosophy, like pattern of star, pattern of stars, right? The earth, solar system, like pattern of stars, earth, solar system, etc. Right? Their knowledge was specialized on this. They would not consider about human life, the state, why do we obey the state, what is citizenship, what should be the state, formation of state, who should rule. Basically, this was actually inquired and propagated by, spoken by Socrates. Okay? And that's why Socrates is known as a father of ethics and father of philosophy. Right? Socrates was the first. Socrates was the first who started inquiring about human life. Right? Good citizen. Right? Ideal state. Ideal state. Virtue. Virtue. Huh? Virtue means excellence, huh? Like honesty, righteousness, virtue, knowledge, right? The governing class, governing classes, right? Justice, education, education, and this is why Socrates is known as father of philosophy and ethics. Father of philosophy and ethics. समझ में आया? ठीक है, इतना समझ में आ गया? अच्छा. Now come to the 402 BCE. I told you that he used to raise a very difficult question. Even he used to raise the authenticity of the city god. He used to raise question on religion, prevalent religion, right? हुआ क्या कि one person, his name was Miletus. Miletus was a state, but Miletus was also a person's name. So this person was from Athens. His name was Miletus, right? Otherwise, there was a many, like for example, Thales मैंने कहा ये आयोनिया से था, ये आयोनिया से था, राइट? जितने लोग मतलब ज्यादातर स्कॉलर जो हुए साइंटिस्ट, आयोनिया एक छोटा सा आइलैंड है, राइट? वहां से हुए थे. नाउ सोक्रेटिस कहां का था? एथेंस का था. अब हुआ क्या, अब कहानी सुनो कि वन पर्सन, हिज नेम वाज मिलेटस. इस इंसान ने क्या किया? मिलेटस एक्यूज्ड सोक्रेटिस, राइट, ऑफ थ्री थिंग्स. इन्होंने 3 एक्यूजेशन लगाए. किसके ऊपर? सोक्रेटिस के ऊपर. फर्स्ट, he does not follow city god. आपको पता है गॉड को नहीं मानना कितना बड़ा क्राइम है. आज भी क्राइम है, पहले तो क्राइम था ही था. अब कोई भगवान आ जाए और आप ना माने, है ना, आप बोलेंगे कि मैं इन भगवान को नहीं मानता, राइट? बोलेंगे क्या रे नास्तिक, बोलेंगे ना, राइट? सो Miletus accused Socrates that he does not follow city god. Second, he had created his own god. Does not mean that he did not believe in God, but he did not believe in the city god. He had created his own god. The third accusation was he is corrupting youth. youth in Athens. ये 3 एक्यूजेशन लगाया, किसने लगाया? मिलेटस। मिलेटस कौन था? मिलेटस वाज अ सिटीजन इन एथेंस। उन्होंने इनके ऊपर लगाया कि भाई ये दो जो है ये सिटी गॉड नहीं मानता है, he does not follow the city god, he has created his own god, अब खुद का बाबा बन रहा है, right? And he is consequently corrupting the youth. कोई गॉड में बिलीव ना करे और दूसरों को बोले कि तुम भी मत करो ये गॉड, तो मतलब कर रहा है, वो गड़बड़ कर रहा है। Now what happened in 299 BCE, 499 ना, हाँ, या 399 BCE, कितने साल बाद? टायरेंट के कितने, या 399 BCE, what happened? There was a jury of 500, right? The jury of 501 था, 500, वहां पर 501 actually inquired into, investigated the Miletus accused on Socrates, right? Now out of 500, the 282 had actually supported Miletus. नंबर मैं यहां से तो देख, कल बताऊंगा देख करके, या किताब में से देख लीजिएगा, राइट? और रेस्ट कितना बचा 500 में से? हा? ये 220 इधर था, 220 इधर था, और 220 के बाद कितना बचेगा आप बताइए? लोएस्ट मुझे याद है जो उसने सोक्रेटिस को सपोर्ट किया था। अब कितना बचेगा 220 के बाद? 2 यहां पर पक्का ना? जोड़ेंगे तो 500 हो जाएगा, हाँ 501 हो जाएगा ना, राइट? तो सही तो लिखा था मैंने, हाँ। नाउ लुक एट द 281 approximately voted Miletus and 220 voted Socrates. You can see how many people were in support of Socrates within the jury, right? तब वहां जो जूरी होता था वो 201 से शुरू ही होता था। एथेंस में जो जूरी होता था 201, 301, 401 और 501, 501 को हाईएस्ट जूरी हुआ करता था। जूरी मतलब राइट ग्रुप, या नंबर ऑफ जजेस, राइट? अभी बैठता है 12 जजेस बेंच, 13 जजेस बेंच, दैट इज केशवानंद भारती केस, 5 जजेस बेंच। उस समय पर सोचिए इतना जजेस था। नाउ 281 वोटेड against Socrates, 220 voted in support of Socrates. अब क्या होगा? Now he had been convicted. Socrates was convicted, right? बार बार यहां से चला जाता है। Now if you look at, Socrates was convicted. Now when Socrates was convicted, what happened? He get punishment that he'll have to die, right? Sorry, poisoned. Yeah, he had given hemlock, a kind of poison, to die, right? Now look at the date of sentence and date of execution. You know date of execution? Date of sentence was the day when jury has delivered sentence, and the day of execution when he was actually given poison, right? Now the jury has convicted him and said he has to die with poison. Now this was a 1 month period. How many days? 30 days. That was a 30 days period between date of sentence and date of execution. Now within these 30 days, there was an arrangement. There was an arrangement that he can run away from the jail, from the prison, right? And there was one person, his friend was Crito. Crito, right? Crito managed everything, and he came to Socrates and he asked Socrates, let's go. We will go somewhere very far from Athens, right? Now we have made an arrangement. Now Socrates said, no, I will face execution. If I run away, then people will think that I was wrong. If I run away, the people will think that I was wrong. I ran away from the truth. No, I will face the truth. Right? I will face the truth. And finally, in 399 BCE, BCE, if you look at, Socrates was executed. Right? Now, this entire episode was observed by a very closed follower. His name was Plato. The entire episode was followed by, right, the Plato. And this entire episode transformed this person, Plato, from a politician to a philosopher. The entire episode of this execution, or the right, changed this man, Plato, from politician. He was a politician, right? But he was closely, observing. He was with Socrates, right? He was, during these 30 days, he was, every day he used to meet, right? The entire episode changed this man, and that man was Plato, whose name was not Plato, right? He was very, very taller. His soldier was very wide, right? And that was in Greek called Plates. Plates, right? Plates. And Plates becomes Plato. His name was Aristocles. His name was Aristocles, but लोग कहते थे प्लेटेज, होता है नाम कुछ और है और लोग आपको कुछ और बुला रहे हैं बिकॉज ऑफ योर द बॉडी शेप, है ना? किसी को बोलते लंबू लंबू, हाँ, किसी को बोलते क्या, हाँ बोलते ना. So Aristocles was very broader, right? Very taller, very, his head was very big. He was very, right? He was from aristocratic family, right? And this man was observing this all episode, right? And he was a politician by profession. His family was, politician by profession. His family was from aristocratic family who ruled Athens, right? Now this man become philosopher, right? Whatever we know about Socrates, we know through the writing of Plato. Let me tell you, we don't know whether Socrates had written something or not. We don't know whether Socrates had written something or not. There is nothing preserved what Socrates wrote. If Socrates wrote something, kuch nahi hai. What we know Socrates, we know through the writing of Plato. Plato wrote 33 books. Let me tell you, Plato wrote 33 books and 13 letters, and all books and letters are preserved. Let me tell you, all books and letters are preserved, written by Plato, and except 2 books, has entire writing. There's one speaker, and one speaker was. Now, whatever books he had written, he written in the form of drama. If you see Plato's work, if you look at Plato's work, Plato's work is in dialogue form. डायलॉग फॉर्म क्या होता है कि किताब में शुरू होते ही कहानी होती है और फिर 4-5 लोग होते हैं और 4-5 लोग आपस में बातचीत करते हैं अबाउट एनीथिंग, राइट, और लास्ट में कंक्लूड हो जाता है. ड्रामा में क्या होता है, एक कहानी शुरू होता है, पूरे फिर बीच में बहुत सारी आपस में इंटरेक्शन होता है, राइट, और बाद में जो सत्य होता है उसकी जीत हो जाती है ना. हर मूवी में यही कहानी है, right? Now it was written in dialogue form, and one of the speaker, the main speaker was Socrates, and we know Socrates through the Plato's, how Plato had depicted Socrates. We know Socrates through the how Plato had depicted Socrates. Right, but not only Plato, there were later writing that also depicted that Socrates was a virtuous man. He was a courageous man. He was a person who used to ask very difficult questions. He used to raise questions before the authority. Right? So with this I will end, and then tomorrow I'll talk about Plato's and Socrates and Plato. Okay? So here I'll end and then we'll talk. समझ में आया? Shweta, with this I will end today's class and tomorrow. Now it's very interesting, नहीं है ना? जो किताब है 2-3 चैप्टर शुरू का 2-2 पेज का चैप्टर है, पढ़ लीजिएगा इसको, ठीक है? और कुछ नहीं पढ़ना है, बस किताब जो मैंने दिया है 2-3 जो चैप्टर 2-2 पेज का चैप्टर है, 3 चैप्टर पढ़ लेना, 6 पेजेस, and then come, right? You'll get better understanding. Shall I stop here, Shweta? See you.